what the heck is going on when we talk about constructors. So I'm just going to use the Rotten Potatoes page for some of these demos and upload the code to the Coursera public repo after class. But let's see, not that one. Here we go. So what I want to talk about is sort of just how this whole class thing works in JavaScript. And for this example, because this code isn't really connected yet to the Rotten Potatoes app, I'm just going to paste it into the console. And let's make this a little bigger. The JavaScript console is great because you can do sort of everything that you want interacting with JavaScript, including things like if I just type movie, I'm using Safari. The Chrome console looks slightly different, but has the same functionality. You actually get really nice inspectors for the basic sort of object type. So I'm not going to go through everything that's there, but I could type this. And what the browser is going to tell me is that this refers to this global window object. And it turns out that like the window object being the base of the browser API has a ton of functionality. We're not going to deal with any of that today though, or at least not right now. But what I could see is I've made, a movie object. It has a couple functions defined on it. That's what we'll do. So let's see. What are some of my movies here? Why does it not pop up my inspector? So I can declare new movies using whatever sort of variable syntax I want. But in this case, it's important that I say new movie. And the arguments for this version are a title, a year, and a rating. So, I could say The Pianist. And what's nice about this, you might have noticed browsers autocomplete things. And I can call methods on here. So like full title. This is just a function that exists that is an instance method of that object. If I scroll up here, what it's doing is it's looking for some property, this title and this year. If I want just something else, right, I can access a title just by treating it as some attribute of the object. Unlike Ruby, right, these things are not method calls when we're accessing attributes. They are just attributes of an object. But JavaScript, for the most part, there's lots of places where this will feel pretty similarly. And of course, I could do things like if I ask whether, let's see, come on. So if I call our forKids method, okay for kids, this one would return true. All this one is doing is looking at our rating. If I scroll back up here, this is a built-in regular expression. So if the rating matches G or PG in this case, it returns true. There's a bunch of different ways that we could write this, but just showing that JavaScript as a language, you might write things in a fairly similar way to working with Ruby. Now, the downside with classes becomes, I'm going to skip adding functionality yet, but let's say, so actually, this is fun. Browsers are getting better. It depends on which browser you use, but if you skip using the keyword new, different browsers will actually sometimes just continue on and not give you an error message. In this case, Safari is actually giving me an error message. I had a different browser, I forget which I was using before, that would let me just create an undefined object. So older versions of JavaScript will actually let you create an undefined object, which is not super helpful. In this case, you just want to be careful. If we're working with objects in JavaScript, we need to generally call new as something that returns an instance. I will just mention the most common browser API that you will probably use at some point is the date API. And so this thing is an object which has instance methods. And so whenever we work with dates, we could say D is equal to new date. Nice thing is by default, it gives me a full sort of date time class that is the current time. But in JavaScript, in the same way that in Ruby, you call class.new, you have to say new class name and whatever arguments when you're working with classes as the interface. But I guess browsers have actually improved, so I forgot that they would give you an error. Sometimes they'll give you undefined. That's one of the challenges. Questions on sort of this demo, and we'll hop back to some other JavaScript functionality.